Hello students, we are going to read class 8 reader lesson 1. The eyes have it. This lesson is written by Ruskin Bond, born in 1934. In an Indian is an Indian author of children's book. He did his schooling from Bishop Convent Cotton School in Simla. After completing his high school education, he went to the United Kingdom for further studies. While in the UK and still only 17 years old, he began to write his first novel, The Room on the Roof, published in the year 1956. The novel won the John Lavenley Rice Memorial Prize in 1957. Bond used the advanced form of novel to pay from his sea voyage back to India, where he settled down in Dehradun. Some of his most acclaimed work include Time Spots at Samli 1989, the Ruskin Bond Children's Omnibus 1995, Crazy Times with Uncle Ken 2011, The Tigers for Dinner, Tall Tales by Jim Corbett's Khansama 2013. In 1992, he won the Sahitya Academy Award for his collection of essays Our Trees Still Grow in Dehra 1991. Today, he is the most famous author in India and lives in Lanbor, Missouri. The Eyes Have It, originally published in Contemporary Indian English Stories in a popular short story by Ruskin Bond. Later it was included in many other collections such as The Eyes Are Not Here, The Girl on the Train, etc. Bond, whose house is built in the lap of nature, he has most of his stories set in Missouri, influenced by great English writers like Charles Dickens and Thomas Hardy. Bond likes to write about common people and their issues. Now we will start reading the lesson. I have the train. I had the train compartment to myself up to Rohna. Then a girl got in. The couple who saw her off were probably her parents. They seemed very anxious about her comfort, and the woman gave the girl detailed instructions as to where to keep her things, when not to lean out of windows, and how to avoid speaking to strangers. They called their goodbyes and the train pulled out of the station. As I was totally blind at the time, my eyes sensitive only to light and darkness, I was unable to tell what the girl looked like, but I knew she wore slippers from the way they slapped against her heels. It would take me some time to discover something about her looks, and perhaps I never would. But I liked the sound of her voice and even the sound of her slippers. Are you going all the way to Dehra? I asked. I must have been sitting in dark corner because my voice startled her. She gave a little exclamation and said, I didn't know anyone else was here. Well, it often happens that people with good eyesight fail to see what is right in front of them. They have too much to take in, I suppose. Whereas people who cannot see or see very little have to take it in only the essential, whatever registers tellingly on their remaining senses. I didn't see you either, I said, but I heard you come in. I wondered if I would be able to prevent her from discovering that I was blind, provided I keep to my seat, I thought. It should not be too difficult. The girl said, I am getting off at Saharanpur. My aunt is meeting me there. Then I had better not get too familiar, I replied. Aunts are usually formidable creatures. Where are you going? She asked. To Dehra and then to Masuri. Oh, how lucky are you? I wish I were going to Masuri. I love the hills, especially in October. Yes, it this is the best time, I said. Calling on my memories, the hills are covered with wild dahlias, the sun is delicious, and the night you can sit in front of a log fire and drink coffee. Most of the tourists have gone and the roads are quiet and almost deserted. Yes, October is the best time. She was silent. I wondered if my words had touched her or whether she thought I was a romantic fool. Then I made a mistake. What is it outside? I asked. She seemed to find nothing strange in the question. Had she noticed already that I could not see? But her next question removed my doubts. Why don't you look out of the window? She asked. I moved easily along the berth and felt for the window ledges. The window was open and I faced it, making a pretense of studying the landscape. I heard the fainting of the engine, the rumble of the wheels, and in my mind's eyes I could see telegraph poles flashing by. Have you noticed, I ventured, that the trees seem to be moving while we seem to be standing still? That's always happens, she said. Do you see any animals? No, I answered quite confidently. I knew that there were hardly any animals left in the forest near Dehra. I turned from the window and faced the girl, and for a while we sat in silence. You have an interesting face, I remarked. I was becoming quite daring, but it was a safe remark. Few girls can resist flattery. She laughed patiently, a clear, ringing laugh. It's nice to be told I have an interesting face. I am tired of people telling me I have a pretty face. Oh, so you do have a pretty face, I thought, and aloud I said, well, an interesting face can also be pretty. You are a very gallant young man, she said, but why are you so serious? I thought then that I would try to laugh for her, but the thought of laughter only made me feel troubled and lonely. We will soon be at your station, I said. Thank God, goodness. Thank goodness. It's a short journey. I can't bear to sit in a train for more than 2 or 3 hours. Yet I was prepared to sit there for almost any length of time just to listen to her talking. Her voice had the sparkle of a mountain stream. As soon as she would leave the train, she would forget our brief encounter, but it would stay with me for the rest of the journey and for some time after. The engines whistled, shrieked. The carriage wheel changed their sound and rhymes. The girl got up and began to collect her things. I wondered if she wore her hair in a bun or if it was plaited. Perhaps it was hanging loose over her shoulder, or was it cut very short. The train drove slowly into the station outside. There was a shouting of porters and vendors, and a high pitched female voice near the carriage door. That voice must have belonged to the girl's aunt. Goodbye, the girl said. She was standing very close to me, so close that the perfume from her hair was tantalizing. I wanted to raise my hand and touch her hair, but she moved away. Only the scent of perfume still lingered very where she had stood. There was some confusion in the doorway. A man getting into the compartment stammered an apology. Then the door danged and the world was shut out again. I returned to my berth. The guard blew his whistle and we moved off once again. I had a game to play and a new fellow traveler. The train gathered speed, the wheels took up their song, the carriage groaned and shook. I found a window and sat in front of it, staring into the daylight that was darkness for me. So many things were happening outside the window. It could be a fascinating game guessing what went on out there. The man who had entered the compartment broke into my reverie. You must be disappointed, he said. I am not nearly as attractive a traveling companion as the one who just left. She was an interesting girl, I said. Can you tell me, did she keep her hair long or short? I don't remember, he said. Sounding puzzled, it was her eyes I noticed, not her hair. She had beautiful eyes, but they were of no use to her. She was completely blind. Didn't you notice? So, students, how did you like this chapter? It was a very beautiful story written by Ruskin Bond of a blind girl and a blind companion in the compartment. Now there are some exercise after this lesson, question answers which you may try or you will get their answer in the classroom when the school starts. Next exercise, reference to contest. You may find the answers and the reference and context can be tried by you. You must try to write the reference to context as they are taught to write you in the previous classes. More videos will come after of different subjects. You must repeat this lesson with me. Thank you.